You unlock this benefit with the key of Patreon. Beyond is another dimension. A dimension of thought. A dimension of speculation. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both waffle and substance. Of things and ideas. You've just crossed into the podcast zone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Trekking Through the Twilight Zone. This is me and Julian working our way through every single episode of the Twilight Zone and giving our thoughts. And we are there with After Hours, or as I like to call it, a 60s Karen. We're going to talk about this episode, and it's also a prequel to Mannequin, I believe.
Yes, it is.
Julian, what are your thoughts on this episode?
I love this episode. I mean, I don't think it's a great episode, but this is a standout for me as one of the better sort of gets into the sort of top 10%. And the plot is just a woman who is answering an ad at a department store, goes up to a mystery, is it the 9th floor?
9th floor, yeah.
And then, which is off the roof, past the roof in the elevator. It's very strange. And, there are things I don't understand. Then we find out ultimately that she's a mannequin, and that's where the mannequins are really alive. I mean, I don't understand why when she goes to mannequin space, they don't just tell her, stay here, you're back, you're late coming back. But nonetheless, I think mannequins are creepy. Mannequins are fascinating. It is a fun episode for me. What about you?
Yeah, no, I love this because this episode is weird and actually has some really good scares. Like, it leans into some of the creepiness as well. Again, it fully acknowledges how creepy mannequins are. And I kind of like you said, there's a couple of places where a line of dialogue could elevate this up a little bit more. But I like the fact as well that she's a sort of a get me your supervisor kind of Karen. Like, I think it's a plot. Well, the thing is, it's a plan, isn't it? Like, it seems to be that they can't tell her. She has to remember to be able to she has to remember so she can slot back into becoming a mannequin. And so she's shown like a really good gold thimble, which she says she has a mother, which is odd because it's obviously she clearly doesn't. But then when she leaves, it's scratched, and so it sort of forms this thing of like trying to trap her in the building, so sort of like just try and keep giving hints. And the best sort of the first sort of like little moment is when she does, because the mannequins in this, some of the mannequins in this are brilliant. Now I'm not sure if they are mannequins or people in really heavy makeup at times. But the first one she sees is an exact replica of the woman that sold her the thimble, and she's wearing the dress, and they turn it around and they carry her off, and that's a great moment because even as a viewer you're like, what the hell is this? And she reacts like very well. So yeah, no, I was digging this episode from the start. Like, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, and there were mannequins. Some of those are real mannequins. But also some of them are clearly people with fantastic. I know it's black and white, but with fantastic makeup. That really makes them look sort of glossy and wooden, and it's very, very well done. And I'm looking at a photo of the lead actress with her mannequin double, and in black and white, low resolution, you can't tell who's the mannequin.
It's really well done.
And the lead in here is Anne Francis from Forbidden Planet.
Oh yes, yes.
She plays the love interest, Altair, or whatever her name is.
Yeah. We should have done that. By the way, one of the things we'll have to rectify, I think, with season 2 is that's so and so from so and so, because every episode seems to have somebody from something else I recognise. She's really good in this. Like, this whole sort of like escalation of like, she's vile to the staff. Like, and this guy's like, we don't, like, constantly the manager and this sort of supervisor's like, we don't have a 9th floor. Well, I've just been there and I've been bought in this, and they're like, I get what you're saying, but we don't. The building doesn't have a ninth floor. Like, I like how this plays out. Like, this whole, it's almost like Toy Story. There's another world. There's another sort of thing, and
that's a good callback.
Yeah, and well, again, like some of my favorite moments come towards the end. Like she gets, and I'll give a glimpse of a story at some point in this, but like she gets locked into the department store, and when she's sort of lost and around, and there's a bit where it's just panning around all those mannequins and stuff, and it is creepy as hell when they're doing it, and then they start to come to life. And it's this sort of congregation, and you get the reveal. Of they take it in turns to go out into the world for a month, and that leads to questions that I have. Like, where do they live? How do they what do they do? Blah 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 blah. But I love this idea that there's actually this whole sort of like subculture of mannequins going out amongst us and living. I think 2 of the mannequins in this are ace. They're the ski mannequins because they are terrifying.
Yeah, you mean because they have ski masks on?
They have the ski masks
that are weirdly decorated ski masks.
Yeah, and they don't bother to take them off, and they're just there's a whole thing where it pans around and they're all staring at her, and you just get these 2 masked people staring at her, and it sort of tops off the creepiness of that scene. But yeah, it is cool.
Yeah, I kind of found the ski mask ones kind of threw me. I didn't find them terrifying. I thought, who the hell is buying ski masks with these like lame designs on them? Like, these are not sophisticated. Was this like an era in which the ski mask itself was so novel that you could have some crummy sort of homemade thing, but it might be there to hide the fact that those mannequins were not made to the same tech standards as the others for filming, because you kind of see more like the neck, cut line on those. Yeah,
it's true. But the other thing, I like the fact that, like, that you say about why don't they just tell her? You find that the woman that sold her the gold thimble on the 9th floor is actually, she was about to replace her.
Mm-hmm.
So she's the one that's going to confront her. So she clearly sort of, to in my headcanon, as it were, like, she has set her up to go, oh, well, I'll bring her in, I'm going to confront her, and she'll be like, oh, yeah, sorry, we'll swap places. Like, it's supposed to be almost like a switch over. And it almost feels like it throws the woman who's the mannequin, who's sort of like, oh, this didn't go as planned. Because they then sort of like, not terrorize is the wrong word, but they try to sort of keep doing things. Like, at one point she goes up to the lift, and the door, and this was incredibly Doctor Who. We've been talking off air about Doctor Who, but this was like a real Doctor Who moment. The lift opens and the mannequin is like leering in to the lift, and she's the blonde woman, the main character, falls back, and then you have the woman in the dress sort of like walk into the lift. It's done. It's edited well. You don't see them change, but like, it's cut well to sort of have those things. Mm-hmm. And so this had a really sort of like creepy atmosphere. And I like the way it leaves. Like, she leaves to go off into the world, and you watch the protagonist turn into a mannequin at the end of the episode,
and be seen as a mannequin.
Yeah.
And Anne Francis sort of like, she puts her arms at her side in this really kind of awkward, but realistic sort of mannequin pose, sort of like L shape of her arms. And then you see her mannequin in the store looking very realistic in the same pose. And that's sort of the final shot, their final reveal. Yeah, I mean, I like imagining what their life is like, the secret mannequin life, and the creepiness of mannequins. I do wonder about like I mean, Anne Francis, so much of why I like her in this role is because she's so beautiful. And there are a lot of close-ups of her that have that sort of like Audrey Hepburn, Grace Kelly sort of, just sheer beauty to them. That's not an earthy beauty, but is, that sort of, very classic look. And so there's almost like a nip tuck kind of layer to this. Of like, yeah.
No, I agree, and I think it's a twofold, because I think it's almost like you choose someone with that kind of look, that very distinctive beauty, because it makes the reveal at the end that much more punchy, you know. So like you said, it's sort of like she's recognizable because you could not question that the thing you see at the end is her. Like, it's not like, oh, it's a vaguely blonde woman, you know. It's, oh no, it's clearly her as a mannequin at the end. Like, she's very distinctive looking, but it also has this notion of false beauty, because all the mannequins, when they become human, apart from the scary mask ones, are very attractive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the males are all very sort of chiseled and you know, good looking, and the women are all very beautiful, and there is this idea of sort of fake beauty in that as well, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, today, of course, if you redid this, it would be, you know, you'd have to address that element of sort of, you know, the expectation of you know, in this case, women to sort of look like a mannequin, or, you know, is that what you really want? Is sort of this lifeless, I mean, it's a sort of like android female companion sort of thing, of the Stepford wife. I mean, and that's there, but it's not a primary theme. It's a sort of underbelly, undercurrent.
Yes. Yeah. The things I do have to ask, though. She comes to this department store to get the gold thimble, is the point. She says for her mother. And so while she's been out in the world for a month and she seems to have forgotten her origins, that I'm gonna go with. I'm like, fine, there's some sort of repression there or whatever, and she wants to go off. Where did she get the money from? Where is she living?
Well, who does she think is her mother? And how was she drawn mystically back to this particular department store? Yeah, I mean, I do like the idea that they sort of forget. Like, she has this line where it's like, oh, it's so easy to forget, you know, a month living as a human. It's like, oh yeah, I used to live as a mannequin, you know. Oh yeah, I do kind of like that idea though. But you're quite right. I mean, it doesn't really make sense, you know. They'd be homeless or something.
Or no, I wouldn't think so, because this is a regular thing, right? So I created a headcanon for this as well, because I do. This is how my head works. They've got this set up, okay, and they're in this department store overnight. So I can imagine that they're sort of over years they've built this thing up, like, for, you know, that month of being human. They haven't really been able to leave much. They've had to come back every day or whatever to this department store, and they've been skimping off the top. Okay, so they've been scraping off the top. They've been hoarding money from in the store where they can. Okay, and they have now been able to somehow set some sort of operation up outside, that's allowed them to have a small apartment somewhere in the city. Or, because I don't think these are the only ones, there's actually a mannequin underground.
Yeah, you're turning this into like some vast conspiracy. Like, there are multiple people have been fired for stealing from their workplace when it's really the mannequins.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like this. You know, I was thinking, like, there's a room. What they don't show you is clearly there's like a closet where they have turned actual customers into mannequins in order to replace them for a month at a time. Something's going on here, right? That's much more sinister than what we're seeing.
Oh yeah. You could go down many routes. Like, there's a whole Waxworks, you know, sort of like House of Wax kind of version of this, where they're dipping humans into some sort of plastic to turn them into replacement mannequins and all this other stuff. You know, it's I honestly think there's a network of mannequins out there, and when you go out for your month, you have an allocated apartment and stuff, and you get like a certain amount of money, you know, like a spending limit and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. This episode I enjoyed, and it intrigued me enough that I was like, oh, I want to know more about this one. Like, I want to know how this works. Like, there's a story here that I want to know more about.
Well, what's interesting, just a final thought, is like how this is really still a one reveal episode, right? I mean, there's one shift, there's one upturning of the plot, and up until then, it's just got a better mystery than some of these other episodes, like that you found flat. And me too. I mean, for me, that twist is interesting. It's resonant. It works. It still doesn't make sense. I mean, this is still a one reveal episode that doesn't make any sense, but it's resonant. It's just working in a way that those others aren't.
I think it's the quality of the mystery and the way it's presented. Like it's well, many of these things are shot really well. I think I'm always impressed with how well these are made and how well they are shot. Like, you know, no doubt. This one just had it lent into the creepiness, and the mystery just felt a bit more tangible, like I could gain something from it, rather than say the one about the trumpeter, which was just sort of, let's say, it was quite flat. But yeah, no, I enjoyed After Hours. After Hours is even the more I think about it, it quickly starts to jump up my ranking of episodes. But any final thoughts? Any final thoughts?
No, I'm good. I did feel the same way.
Cool. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're enjoying our trekking through the Twilight Zone, and we're almost done with season 1. So I hope you keep sticking with us. But ladies and gentlemen, we'll talk to you on the next episode. Okay, so this is an addendum to the episode you've just listened to, because we found out, or at least I should say, Julian found out that the episode, The After Hours, was remade in the 90s. Julian, is it?
It was 86 in the second Twilight Zone series.
Okay. Yes, it was remade, and they apply it to the Galleria in Los Angeles, which to me, I only know from Terminator 2. So,
these mannequins actually became the Terminators. So. Yeah.
Well, it makes me laugh because in the Terminator 2, there is the thing where obviously the T-1000 looks at that metallic mannequin, and I did think about that when I heard it was in the Galleria. But this episode, obviously made in the 80s, first and foremost, from my point of view, goes for a very different tone.
Yeah,
and that tone, it's going from. Sorry, go on.
No, it's got body horror.
Eventually, but it's where sort of like the original version plays for, like, you know, paranoia and sort of like as we sort of said, like Hitchcockian sort of like, you know, intense fear and sort of like, you know, worry to an extent, like, you know, not that level, but still that's what it's playing for. This is just playing for, I don't know, like, you know, it's a chase episode. It basically sort of like, but they introduced the concept of the mannequins like within the first half of this section. It's like there's no hiding it. Like, there's a guy turn up and he's like, "I've got mannequin hands," and then like beyond that, it just becomes obvious. Like, it's not subtle in the slightest.
Yeah, I mean, if the other one asks, you know, what is reality and how do I deal with the existential, you know, feeling of otherness, this one asks, what does a mother feel trying to get, or a woman feel trying to get a Cabbage Patch Kids doll before a birthday?
Yeah. Yeah. I hated this. Absolutely hated it. Not more.
You're welcome.
You know, yeah. Well, the weird thing is, like you say, we looked at that. You know, the was it the monsters are on.
The monsters are due on Maple Street, right? In the remake.
And we said both versions of that were really good. Like there was that modernization. They gave it the modern slant to look at things like, you know, post 9/11. It had that idea and it went with it. It was great. This, in a post sort of like, you know, especially in the 80s, that commercialism and this idea of sort of like, you know, commercial capitalism, especially around kids' toys and stuff, like this should have been prime for something like this. Yeah, no, they're going for something closer to like Chopping Mall. Like, this is supposed to be more akin to like a horror, that this thing of like they basically just repeat her name, like the one word used in this repeatedly is Marsha, and all I could think about is the Brady Bunch movie, Marsha,
Yes.
Marsha.
I thought of that too, sadly.
Yeah. And so I don't know, it just did not work for me at all. It felt too. It even explains it, like the main like literally says, like, there is dialogue in this episode where he says, "We're all mannequins, you're a mannequin," and then you're like, "All right, well, thanks for that. There's the Twilight twist for you."
Yeah, that was a particularly weak moment. I mean, I do think that it's a good idea to update it. We both like updates, and it worked with Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. But here, like, the earlier one occurs in a generation of New York department stores where, like the Woolworth building is a skyscraper, and so you can go up to the strange floor, right? All of that's gone, and this is updated for sort of the 80s shopping mall. Okay, fair enough. That's good. Except the only importance of that is you get rid of that creepy floor with so a lot of the drama is then gone. And what is it replaced with? It's replaced with a woman running around a shopping mall after it's closed, which, if you know anything about shopping malls, they don't do that. Nobody is going to open up the gates. And a guy kind of following her. I like the hands. I like the body horror kind of stuff. I like the hands. But yeah, I mean, there's not an awful lot in this episode.
No. There were two. You said that's a decidedly weak moment when he basically tells you the twist. The other one, which literally had me laughing out loud, is she runs back behind the scenes. Sort of like that, the corridors that, like, go between the shops. And there's a box full of heads. And they're all, and like there's some real mannequin heads in there, like, and then there's 2 or 3 poor actors that they've buried and have their heads sticking out, and they're going, "Marsha, Marsha," and I couldn't help but like giggle. It's so awful. Yes, it just made me laugh.
No, I mean, that's the kind of thing where I think, like, I can see what they were going for. I mean, kind of. The whole, like, all the mannequins saying her name, it's the kind of thing where, like, in a script meeting or, a writer's idea, that might sound good, right? Like, you're hearing your name and they all know your name, and okay, fine. But you're right. I mean, curiously, these special effects are better in the original Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
But it's just like, oh, that's clearly a mannequin standing there. I don't believe it is speaking. Yeah.
It just didn't matter. The first one had a point. It had a real sort of like it was creepy. It had that sort of like, manic paranoia. Like, I liked the fact that there was that sort of thing if you didn't know. But the point is, like, at no point in the original did the mannequins basically gang up on the poor woman to pick on her. Like, they're trying to get her to remember, but they are struggling for the simple fact is they can't interact with her in front of people. So, and then she sees the woman that she's interacted with as a mannequin. And so it's not until the end when she's like, "Oh gosh, it's all come back to me. Yes, this is the realization or the dawning of the information." Like, it makes sense. And then you see her the next day as a mannequin, and it was very good. With this one, all the mannequins are a bunch of dicks. Like, they literally just chasing her down, tormenting her. And I'm like, hang on, could this not have been solved with one conversation?
Yeah, and I mean, it goes for that sort of like Terminator or Westworld thing of like being pursued by the mannequins. And it even goes so far as to have her knock a mannequin over and destroy its face, which you see all those heads. I guess the heads are separately animate. I mean, I'm not sure how this works, and that's a problem in the original, but you don't think about it, right?
Yeah.
It's not. This underlines the problem, and even has her destroy one of her fellow coworkers, and that's never referenced again. So It's sort of like her war with the mannequins, and they get her and turn her back into, as opposed to like a community of mannequins who are one by one going out into the world. That's much more creepy, and it helps you identify with that other. Here, the other is just a, Westworld sort of unthinking monster.
Well, it flips the message, because in the first one, as you say, they're a community. Like, they literally support each other. They're like, yes, we go out for a month, we experience the world, and we come back, and we are a group. And when she does transform back at the end of the episode, it is a returning, and they are a community. And it's that sort of thing of like, if you want to take it as the other, they are just like us. In this, it's like they are the other, and they are fucking terrifying.
Yes, exactly. No, that's an excellent point. And also, I mean, I think I like the body horror idea. I don't think the effects are good, but this comes out as she's turning back into a mannequin. Except, like that never happens in the first one. In the first one, it's sort of implied it's by volition.
Yes.
Here it's like, is this just magic that wears off? Is there some kind of like death ray that turns you back into a mannequin? I mean, and she's running away from them. So again, I
don't know. This one just didn't work for me. It's a 20 something. I don't know. It's like a 30-minute episode. This takes up about 20 minutes. It's an extended section of it. It felt rushed. It didn't sort of have a message. It doesn't even have like a Twilight twist. It just feels like they've gone, right, this is a good idea, we should update this, and then not really put a great deal of thought into it. I thought it's a real shame, because the first version, the original, is very good. I do still think about it.
Yeah, and just to wrap up, I mean, I think it does, if nothing else, it shows how these an avenue for these updates not to take. I mean, it does feel like it needs another pass at the script. But if nothing else, it shows how good the original episode is, and how that the original show's sensibilities, not always, but usually are with the other, and are usually with a sense of creepiness and not knowing. As opposed to, it does seem very 80s though, doesn't it? Like, the monster's after you, it's Reagan. We can't talk about all those deep things.
I almost want to see like a new remake of this that now addresses the sort of the death of the physical store. Like, what happens to these mannequins if there's nowhere for them to go?
Yeah, that's the unproduced screenplay for Mannequin 3. The Amazon years.
Yes, yeah. Kim Cattrall just in the back of a warehouse somewhere, where she belongs. No, I'm gonna that, but
ooh, sick burn.
Yeah, that's it. When she hears this, oof, we're gonna have a.
You're in trouble now.
Yeah. Anyway, we shall move on from this. So yes, this was just an addendum for this episode. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and you shall join us on the next episode.